This book was not easy to write. There were moments when I questioned whether I should even attempt it, whether I had the right, the insight, or the clarity to put these ideas into words. But something deeper pushed me forward. A need born from my own struggles, my own moments of feeling trapped by thoughts I didn't choose, reactions I didn't understand, and patterns I couldn't break. I wrote this book because I had to. Because I know what it's like to feel like a stranger in your own mind. To watch yourself make the same mistakes, fall into the same emotional traps, and wonder, why can't I change? And then, through trial, error, and relentless curiosity, I discovered something revolutionary. You are not broken. You are programmed, and programs can be rewritten. Chapter 1. The Illusion of Mental Control. Studies show your subconscious mind processes about 11 million bits of information every second, while your conscious mind handles only 40. That means 99.99996% of your mental processing happens without your awareness or control. These aren't just random thoughts. This subconscious activity actively shapes your decisions, your emotions, and your reality. Marketing companies know this, which is why studies suggest around 90 to 95% of buying decisions are made subconsciously. But here's the thing. What if you could harness this same power for your own transformation? What if the very system that's been running your life without your permission could become your greatest tool for change? The question is, do you really know who's in control of your mind right now? Most people walk through their day convinced they're making conscious choices. They think they decide what to wear, what to eat, which route to take to work, and how to respond in conversations. This feels natural because we experience these moments as deliberate decisions. We feel the weight of choice. We sense ourselves weighing options and selecting outcomes. But cognitive neuroscience research reveals a startling truth that challenges everything we think we know about mental control. Research suggests the subconscious handles up to 95% of our daily decisions without conscious awareness or input. This means only 5% of what you think, feel, and do actually comes from your conscious mind. The vast majority of your mental activity operates completely outside your awareness. Think about this for a moment. If someone told you that 95% of your car's steering happened without your input, you'd be terrified. Yet this is exactly what's happening in your mental world every single day. This mental programming doesn't just handle small, insignificant choices. It shapes your morning routine, determines how you interact with your family, influences your work performance, and even affects major life decisions. When you automatically reach for your phone first thing in the morning, that's programming. When you find yourself in the same arguments with your partner, using the same words, and feeling the same frustrations, that's programming. When you procrastinate on important projects or sabotage opportunities that could change your life, that's programming. Your subconscious mind processes roughly 11 million bits of information per second, while your conscious mind handles only about 40 bits per second. This massive processing gap explains why so many of your behaviors happen without deliberate thought. Your subconscious operates at lightning speed, making instant assessments and triggering responses based on patterns it recognizes from past experiences. This same rapid processing allows your subconscious to handle complex tasks through implicit memory and procedural learning. Consider how you navigate a familiar route while driving. You can arrive at your destination with almost no memory of the journey itself. Your conscious mind was elsewhere, perhaps planning your day or replaying a conversation, while your subconscious handled thousands of micro-decisions about speed, distance, timing, and navigation. Similarly, you select clothing based on subconscious preferences shaped by past experiences. Reach for specific brands while shopping because your subconscious recognizes certain visual cues, and use common phrases in conversations that flow automatically from implicit memory. Even your emotional responses operate this way. When someone criticizes you, your immediate reaction happens before conscious thought kicks in, triggered by patterns programmed years ago. Your subconscious uses this implicit memory system to store repeated experiences and enable instinctive performance of complex tasks. This allows you to function efficiently without constant conscious effort. But it also means you're often reacting to present situations based on past programming rather than current reality. The most unsettling part is how convinced you are that you're in control. Your conscious mind creates stories to explain decisions that were actually made subconsciously. You rationalize choices that happened automatically. You defend patterns that were installed without your permission. This creates an illusion of control that feels completely real, but masks the true source of your mental activity. When you find yourself stuck in repeating patterns, struggling with the same challenges year after year, or feeling like you're fighting against yourself, you're experiencing the gap between conscious intention and subconscious programming. Your conscious mind sets goals and makes plans, but your subconscious runs the show based on its existing programming. This raises a critical question that most people never ask. If you're not actually controlling 95% of your mental activity, then who or what is? What force is making these millions of decisions that shape your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors? What's running the programs that determine how you see the world and respond to it? The answer changes everything about how you approach personal growth and life change. Most people try to create change through willpower and conscious effort alone. They set goals, make resolutions, and attempt to think their way to transformation. But they're trying to overpower a system that operates with 275 times more processing capacity than their conscious awareness. It's like trying to redirect a massive river with a small paddle. You might create tiny ripples on the surface, but the underlying current remains unchanged. The river keeps flowing in the same direction because that's what rivers do. They follow the path of least resistance, carved by countless repetitions over time. Your mental patterns work the same way. They've been carved through repetition, emotional intensity, and consistent reinforcement. They represent the path of least resistance for your neural activity. Trying to change them through conscious effort alone is like standing in the river and commanding it to flow uphill. But here's where hope enters the picture. The same system that keeps you trapped in unwanted patterns can be reprogrammed to serve your highest goals. Your subconscious mind isn't your enemy. It's an incredibly powerful tool that's been running programs you never consciously chose to install. The subconscious mind is the real driver of your mental vehicle. It makes decisions, filters information, triggers emotional responses, and guides behavior based on its programming. Recognizing this isn't defeat. It's the first step toward taking back genuine control. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. You can't reprogram systems you don't understand. Once you accept that your subconscious has been running the show, you can start learning how to work with it instead of against it. You can discover how to install new programming that serves your conscious goals. You can learn to speak the language your subconscious understands and respond to. This hidden mental force has been shaping your reality from behind the scenes, working tirelessly every moment of every day. It never stops never rests, and never takes a break from its constant work of building your experience of reality. Chapter 2. Your Silent Mental Architect. This mental force operates as your silent architect, constantly designing and constructing your experience of reality from behind the scenes. While you focus on conscious thoughts and deliberate decisions, this architect works with materials you never consciously selected, following blueprints you never consciously approved. Think about it this way. While you're focused on reading this sentence, your subconscious is simultaneously managing your breathing, regulating your heart rate, maintaining your balance, filtering sounds around you, and processing thousands of other pieces of information. It's like having a supercomputer running in the background while you use a simple calculator on the screen. The calculator gets your attention, but the supercomputer does the heavy lifting. Your subconscious processes roughly 11 million bits of information every second. Your conscious mind handles about 40 bits per second. That means your subconscious is processing 275,000 times more information than your conscious awareness can handle. Yet most people have no idea this massive mental processing system even exists. Picture an iceberg floating in the ocean. The small tip you see above water represents your conscious mind. The thoughts you're aware of, the decisions you think you're making, the experiences you notice. But beneath the surface lies this enormous mass of ice that you can't see. That hidden portion is your subconscious mind, and it's vastly larger and more influential than the tiny tip above water. Your subconscious acts like a master architect, constantly building and rebuilding your reality through selective attention and filtering. It decides what information reaches your conscious awareness and what gets filtered out. This filtering system, called the reticular activating system, works like a personal assistant that sorts through millions of details and only brings you what it thinks matters. Research on unconscious processes shows how this system prioritizes information that aligns with your existing beliefs, goals, and needs, essentially creating a customized version of reality based on your internal programming. But here's the catch. It doesn't bring you what actually matters for your growth or success. It brings you what matches your existing programming, your current beliefs, and your established patterns. Studies tracking eye movements reveal how unconscious memory guides attention, directing your focus toward information that confirms pre-existing patterns while filtering out contradictory evidence. Let's say you believe you're not good at public speaking. When you're in social situations, your subconscious will highlight every stumbled word, every awkward pause, every sign that confirms this belief. It will filter out compliments, positive reactions, and evidence that contradicts your programming. Your mental architect is literally building a reality that matches your internal blueprint, even when that blueprint works against you. Your subconscious automates responses based on past programming rather than present circumstances. When someone raises their voice, your subconscious doesn't analyze the current situation. It instantly accesses your stored experiences with raised voices and triggers the same emotional and physical responses you had years ago. Maybe you tense up because your subconscious remembers childhood experiences. Maybe you get defensive because that's the pattern it learned to keep you safe. This system developed to help you survive, and survival means sticking with what's familiar. Your subconscious treats unfamiliar as dangerous and familiar as safe. It doesn't matter if the familiar pattern is actually harmful or limiting. What matters is that it's known, predictable, and has kept you alive so far. Think about why you eat the same foods, take the same routes to work, and fall into the same relationship patterns. Your subconscious has labeled these choices as safe, because they're familiar. When you try to change, eat healthier, take risks, or break old patterns, your subconscious sends alarm signals. It creates anxiety, doubt, and resistance, because change represents potential danger in its survival-focused programming. This explains why people often sabotage themselves just when things start improving. Your subconscious isn't trying to hurt you. It's trying to protect you by pulling you back to familiar territory. Success might be unfamiliar territory. So your mental architect starts building obstacles to guide you back to what it considers the safe zone. Your subconscious also manages your automatic behaviors and habits. When you automatically reach for your phone, follow the same morning routine, or respond to stress in predictable ways, you're experiencing subconscious programming in action. These patterns happened so many times that your mental architect automated them to save conscious processing power. But automation comes with a cost. Your subconscious can't tell the difference between helpful automation and harmful automation. It just runs whatever programs have been installed through repetition, emotional intensity, or early childhood experiences. If you learn to doubt yourself through repeated criticism, your subconscious will automatically generate self-doubt in new situations. If you learn that money is scarce through family messages, your subconscious will filter information to confirm scarcity even when opportunities exist. Your mental architect builds your reality through these automated programs, but it doesn't create new programs on its own. It just runs the existing software over and over again. This is why people can stay stuck in the same patterns for decades. Their subconscious is faithfully executing outdated programming that no longer serves them. Here's where this gets interesting. Your subconscious doesn't judge the programs it runs. It doesn't decide whether beliefs are true or helpful. It simply executes whatever has been installed through repetition, emotion, or authority figures during your developmental years. This means limiting beliefs get the same processing power as empowering beliefs. Self-doubt gets automated, just like self-confidence. Your mental architect follows blueprints that were created years ago, often during childhood when your brain was most impressionable. These blueprints determine what kind of reality it builds for you day after day. But blueprints can be changed. Programs can be updated. New patterns can be installed. Understanding your subconscious as a programmable system changes everything about personal development. Instead of fighting against this powerful force, you can learn to work with it. Instead of trying to overpower 11 million bits of processing with 40 bits of conscious willpower, you can learn to speak the language your subconscious understands. The question becomes, where did these original programs come from? How did your mental architect acquire the blueprints it's been following all these years? The answer takes us back to a specific period in your development when your mind was completely open to programming. Chapter 3. The Programming Years. Between birth and age 7, your brain operated in a completely different state than it does now. During these programming years, your mind functioned like an open database with unlimited write access. No security protocols, no critical analysis, no filtering systems. Every experience, every word, every emotion around you got downloaded directly into your core operating system. Your brain during early childhood runs primarily in theta brainwaves, operating at 4 to 7 hertz. This frequency creates a highly suggestible mental state where information flows directly into your subconscious without any filtering mechanism. Scientists describe children in this state as walking sponges because they absorb everything in their environment with incredible efficiency and no resistance. Think about how you learned to walk. You didn't question whether walking was possible or analyze the physics involved. You simply absorbed the information that humans walk, and your brain figured out how to make it happen. This same absorption process worked for everything else during those crucial years. When adults around you expressed beliefs about money, relationships, success, or your own capabilities, your theta state brain downloaded these beliefs as unquestionable facts. This system makes perfect sense from a survival perspective. Children need to learn rapidly about their environment, social rules, and basic life skills. They can't afford to spend time questioning every piece of information when they're still figuring out how the world works. But this same mechanism that helps you master language and essential skills also makes you completely vulnerable to negative programming. When a parent says, "Money doesn't grow on trees," during a moment of financial stress, your theta state brain doesn't evaluate this statement. It doesn't consider economic principles or question the metaphor. It simply downloads the belief that money is scarce and difficult to obtain. When someone criticizes your behavior or abilities, your developing mind doesn't analyze whether the criticism is fair or accurate. It absorbs the message as truth about who you are. Family dynamics during these years became your template for how relationships work. If you grew up in a household where love came with conditions, where approval had to be earned through performance, or where conflict was handled through silence or explosion, these patterns became your relationship software. Your developing mind absorbed these dynamics as normal and how things are supposed to be. Cultural messages from your early environment also became part of your mental programming. Messages about what's possible for people like you, what roles you should fill, what dreams are realistic or unrealistic. These weren't casual suggestions your young mind heard. They were authoritative downloads from the trusted adults in your world, installed with the same certainty as basic facts like your name or address. Your early experiences created the fundamental lens through which you see everything. If you experienced consistent criticism during your programming years, you developed a lens that automatically looks for what's wrong or inadequate. If you experienced unpredictable emotional responses from caregivers, you developed a lens that scans for signs of rejection or abandonment. These weren't conscious choices you made. They were automatic adaptations your brain created to help you navigate your early environment. These early downloads determine how you interpret present situations. When someone gives you feedback at work, you don't just hear their words. You hear them through the filter of your childhood programming about criticism and authority. When you face a new opportunity, you don't just evaluate the opportunity itself. You evaluate it through the lens of what you learned was possible for someone like you. Most people are still running on childhood programming in adult bodies. They've grown physically, gained education, and accumulated life experience. But their core operating system remains largely unchanged from those early programming years. They react to present situations based on patterns installed decades ago, when their brains were designed to accept information without question. This explains why intelligent, capable adults often struggle with issues that seem completely illogical. A successful professional might still feel like an imposter because their childhood programming tells them they're not smart enough. A financially stable person might still feel anxiety about money because their early programming installed scarcity beliefs. A loving adult might still struggle with intimacy because their programming years taught them that closeness leads to hurt. The emotional intensity of childhood experiences makes them particularly powerful programming events. When you're young and something scary, overwhelming, or painful happens, your theta state brain doesn't just record the facts. It downloads the entire emotional experience as important survival information. This is why certain situations can trigger seemingly irrational emotional responses years later. Your adult brain encounters something that reminds your subconscious of that early programming, and suddenly you're responding with the same intensity you felt as a child. Your childhood programming also includes the coping strategies you developed to handle difficult situations. If you learned that being perfect kept you safe from criticism, perfectionism became part of your core programming. If you learned that staying small and invisible helped you avoid conflict, playing small became your default strategy. These weren't conscious choices. They were survival adaptations that got programmed into your operating system during your most impressionable years. Many of the internal voices you hear today are actually recordings from your programming years. The inner critic that tells you you're not good enough often sounds remarkably similar to critical voices from childhood. The voice that says you can't trust people might be repeating messages from early betrayal or abandonment experiences. These voices feel like your own thoughts, but they're actually playback from old programming. What makes this particularly challenging is that childhood programming feels completely natural and true. Since these patterns were installed during your most impressionable years, they integrated seamlessly into your sense of identity. You don't experience them as foreign programs running in your mind. You experience them as who you are. The beliefs and patterns from your programming years also create self-fulfilling prophecies. If you absorb the belief that you're not capable of success, you'll unconsciously make choices that confirm this belief. Here's what changes everything about this situation. Recognizing that your current mental patterns aren't actually you, but installed programs, creates tremendous hope for change. You didn't choose these patterns as an adult with full awareness and critical thinking skills. They were downloaded during a developmental period when your brain was designed to accept information without question. Your childhood programming isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility to address as an adult. You can't change what was installed during your programming years, but you can absolutely change what continues to run in your mental system today. These programs don't just sit dormant in your subconscious waiting to be discovered. They actively operate every single day, shaping what you notice, what you believe, and how you respond to the world around you. Chapter 4. The Confirmation Trap. This constant operation creates what psychologists call the confirmation trap, a mental system so clever that most people never realize it exists. Your brain has a built-in filtering mechanism that makes sure you keep believing exactly what you already believe. It's called the reticular activating system, and it acts like a mental search engine that's constantly looking for evidence to support your existing beliefs. Think about what happens when you're considering buying a red car. Suddenly, you start noticing red cars everywhere. They seem to appear on every street corner, in every parking lot, in every commercial you see. Did the number of red cars actually increase? Of course not. Your reticular activating system simply started filtering them into your conscious awareness because red cars became relevant to your current thinking. This same system operates with every belief you hold about yourself, other people, and the world around you. If you believe you're unlucky, your mental search engine will highlight every small mishap, every delayed train, every spilled coffee. It will filter these incidents into your awareness while filtering out the good parking spots you found, the green lights you caught, and the kind gestures people made toward you. Your reticular activating system works as a survival mechanism that prioritizes consistency over truth. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes perfect sense Humans who could quickly recognize patterns and stick with proven survival strategies were more likely to survive than those who constantly questioned everything. Your brain developed to favor familiar information because familiar meant safe. But what kept your ancestors alive can keep you trapped today. Your brain actively filters out information that could help you grow or change, because new information threatens the consistency of your existing belief system. When you believe you're not good at public speaking, your RAS will notice every stumbled word, every awkward pause, every moment of nervousness. It will simultaneously filter out positive feedback, engaged audience members, and evidence that you're actually improving. This filtering happens automatically and unconsciously. You don't wake up and decide to look for evidence that confirms your limiting beliefs. Your reticular activating system does this behind the scenes, presenting you with a carefully curated version of reality that matches your internal programming. You experience this filtered reality as objective truth, never realizing that your brain edited out contradictory evidence. Consider how this plays out in news consumption. Research shows that people with strong political views actively seek out news sources that align with their existing perspectives. Conservative individuals gravitate toward conservative news outlets, while liberal individuals prefer liberal sources. When presented with the same event, each group's filtering system highlights different aspects that support their pre-existing beliefs. They're not being dishonest. Their brains are literally presenting them with different versions of the same events based on their programmed filtering systems. The same mechanism keeps you stuck in negative self-beliefs by finding proof they're true. If you believe you're not smart enough for success, your RAS will highlight every mistake you make, every question you can't answer, every moment you feel confused. It will filter out your problem-solving abilities, your creative insights, and evidence of your intelligence in action. If you believe relationships always end badly, your mental search engine will notice every couple that breaks up, every divorce announcement, every relationship conflict you witness. It will filter out happy couples, successful partnerships, and examples of relationships that improve over time. Your brain will literally present you with a reality where relationships seem destined to fail. This creates a particularly vicious cycle. Your limiting beliefs cause your RAS to filter reality in ways that confirm those beliefs. The confirmed beliefs then become stronger, causing even more selective filtering. You get trapped in a self-reinforcing loop where your beliefs create the evidence that supports your beliefs. Your brain can't see opportunities that don't match your current self-image. If you see yourself as someone who struggles financially, your RAS will filter out business opportunities, investment possibilities, and career advancement options. These opportunities might exist all around you, but your mental filtering system literally makes them invisible to your conscious awareness. This explains why some people seem to have all the luck, while others encounter constant obstacles. They're not living in different realities. They're living in the same reality with different filtering systems. Their beliefs about what's possible for them determine what their brains allow them to see and notice. Your reticular activating system also affects how you interpret neutral situations. When someone doesn't return your text message immediately, your filtering system will interpret this based on your existing beliefs. If you believe people don't really like you, you'll notice the delayed response as evidence of rejection. If you believe you're well-liked, you'll assume they're busy and will respond when they can. The same event gets filtered through different belief systems and creates completely different emotional experiences. Your feelings aren't really about what happened. They're about how your programmed filtering system interpreted what happened. This filtering extends to your memories as well. Your brain doesn't store objective recordings of past events. It stores interpretations of events filtered through your beliefs at the time they occurred. When you recall these memories, your current beliefs filter them again. This is why different people can remember the same event completely differently, and both believe their version is accurate. Your confirmation bias affects every aspect of how you process information. You seek out news sources that align with your existing views. You befriend people who share your perspectives. You choose books, podcasts, and content that reinforces what you already believe. Without realizing it, you create an echo chamber that constantly validates your current programming. Breaking free from this trap requires understanding how your filtering system works. Your brain will continue to search for evidence that supports your existing beliefs. But you can deliberately choose what beliefs you want it to support. You can consciously feed your reticular activating system new evidence to search for. When you start looking for evidence that you're capable, your RAS will begin filtering capability supporting information into your awareness. When you actively search for examples of successful people who started where you are now, your filtering system will start noticing these examples everywhere. The key is recognizing that your current reality isn't the only reality available to you. It's just the reality your filtering system has been trained to show you. The same mechanism that's been keeping you stuck can become the force that propels you forward. You just need to understand how to work with it instead of against it. But changing your filtering system isn't as simple as just deciding to think differently. Your mental patterns have built-in resistance mechanisms designed to maintain consistency. And these mechanisms activate the moment you attempt to change. Chapter 5. The 3 Faces of Mental Resistance. These resistance mechanisms manifest through 3 distinct patterns that work together like a coordinated defense system. Your mind doesn't just resist change randomly. It launches a strategic attack designed to pull you back to familiar territory. Here's what makes this so tricky. These resistance patterns are incredibly subtle. Most people experience them and immediately think something's wrong with them personally. They assume they lack willpower. They believe they're just not strong enough or disciplined enough to change. They blame themselves for what feels like personal weakness when they're actually facing a sophisticated defense system built into human psychology. Your mind has 3 distinct faces of resistance that take turns wearing you down until you give up and return to familiar patterns. The first face is emotional resistance. Fear, anxiety, and overwhelming feelings that flood your system whenever you attempt significant change. When you decide to start a business, within hours you start feeling anxious about failing, imagining worst-case scenarios, feeling overwhelmed by everything you don't know. These emotions aren't random. They're your subconscious mind's way of creating discomfort around change, because your emotional system learned that familiar equals safe and unfamiliar equals dangerous. Emotional resistance is particularly powerful because emotions feel so real and immediate. When anxiety hits, you don't think, "This is just my resistance system activating." You think, "Maybe this really is too risky?" Or, "Maybe I'm not ready for this yet." The emotional discomfort feels like valid information about the situation rather than a predictable response to leaving your comfort zone. Research shows you can overcome emotional resistance using the 5-second rule. When you feel resistance, count backwards from 5 and take immediate action before your brain can generate more fear. This interrupts the emotional spiral and activates your prefrontal cortex, giving you access to rational decision-making instead of fear-based reactions. The second phase is cognitive resistance. your mind flooding you with seemingly rational reasons why change won't work. When you try to improve your health, cognitive resistance reminds you how many diets you've tried before that didn't work. It calculates how much time and money healthy eating will cost. It finds studies about people who exercise too much and get injured. It presents you with a compelling case for why changing your health habits is actually impractical, given your current circumstances. This form of resistance is so convincing because it uses real information. The studies it cites are often actual studies. The obstacles it identifies are often real obstacles. The past failures it reminds you of actually happened. But cognitive resistance cherry-picks information to build a case against change while filtering out information that supports change. Your logical mind feels like it's being responsible and realistic when it's actually being manipulated by your resistance system. You think you're making smart decisions based on careful analysis, when you're actually being fed carefully selected information designed to keep you exactly where you are. Research on unconscious thought processes reveals that when conscious analysis fails, your unconscious mind often produces better decisions through intuitive processing. You can overcome cognitive resistance by setting a decision deadline and trusting your gut response, rather than getting trapped in endless analysis that your resistance system uses to create paralysis. The third phase is behavioral resistance. Procrastination, self-sabotage, and mysterious failures to follow through on commitments you genuinely want to keep. You set an alarm to wake up early and exercise, but somehow you keep sleeping through it. You plan to work on your business idea after dinner, but you find yourself watching television instead. You commit to eating healthier, but you keep finding yourself in drive-through lines, making choices that contradict your stated goals. Behavioral resistance is frustrating because it makes you feel like you can't trust yourself. You make decisions with clear intention, but your actions don't match your decisions. You feel like you're fighting against yourself, and in many ways, you are. Your conscious mind sets goals while your subconscious mind sabotages them through behavioral patterns. You can overcome behavioral resistance by creating implementation intentions, specific if-then plans that automate your responses. Instead of saying, "I'll exercise tomorrow," you say, "If it's 6 a.m., then I immediately put on my workout clothes." This bypasses the decision-making process where resistance typically strikes. These three phases work together in sequence. When you start overcoming emotional resistance and feeling more confident about change, cognitive resistance intensifies. When you work through the logical objections and start taking action, behavioral resistance kicks in stronger. They take turns until you give up and return to familiar patterns. Think about the last time you tried to make a significant change. Maybe you wanted to start exercising regularly. At first, you felt excited and motivated. Then, emotional resistance showed up as anxiety about looking foolish at the gym. When you worked through those feelings, cognitive resistance presented logical reasons why your schedule was too busy. When you found solutions to those problems, behavioral resistance made you oversleep on workout days. Here's the truth that changes everything. Resistance actually increases the closer you get to breakthrough. The stronger the resistance, the closer you are to real transformation. Your subconscious mind doesn't resist small, insignificant changes very much. It reserves its strongest defensive responses for changes that would actually transform your life. Professional athletes understand this principle. When they're training, the hardest part of the workout is right before breakthrough. Their muscles resist most intensely just before they get stronger. peak resistance signals that adaptation is about to happen. Your mental and emotional systems work the same way. The resistance you feel isn't evidence that change is impossible. It's evidence that your current programming recognizes a serious threat to its continued operation. The patterns that have been running your life automatically are fighting for their survival. Recognizing these three faces allows you to see resistance differently. Instead of interpreting resistance as personal weakness, you can recognize it as a predictable part of the change process. You can expect it, prepare for it, and work with it instead of being surprised and defeated by it. When emotional resistance shows up, you can acknowledge the feelings without letting them control your decisions. When cognitive resistance floods you with logical objections, you can recognize the cherry-picked information for what it is. When behavioral resistance sabotages your actions, you can adjust your systems and try again rather than giving up entirely. But resistance is just the surface level. The real power lies in identifying the specific beliefs that fuel this resistance, the hidden programming that's been pulling the strings behind the scenes. Chapter 6. Hunting your hidden beliefs. Most people struggle to identify the specific beliefs that actually control their daily lives. These limiting beliefs, deeply held assumptions about yourself, others, or the world that restrict your potential, don't announce themselves with flashing neon signs. They don't show up wearing name tags that say, "Hi, I'm your limiting belief about money," or "Hello, I'm why you sabotage relationships." Instead, these beliefs hide in plain sight. They disguise themselves as common sense, as just the way things are, as realistic thinking. They sound so normal and reasonable that you never question them. When you think people like me don't get lucky breaks, or I'm just not a math person, or successful people are different from me, these thoughts feel like observations about reality rather than programmed beliefs that shape your reality. Here's the thing. Your limiting beliefs operate like underground rivers. You can't see them directly, but you can track them by following the effects they create on the surface. The key is learning to read the signs they leave behind in your emotional reactions, your language patterns, and your recurring frustrations. Let's start with emotional archaeology. This technique involves tracing strong emotional reactions back to their source beliefs. Think about the last time you felt intense emotion, seemingly out of proportion to what actually happened. Maybe someone questioned your idea in a meeting and you felt crushed. Maybe you saw someone else's success and felt bitter. Maybe you faced a new opportunity and felt terror instead of excitement. These emotional reactions are like treasure maps leading to hidden programming. Your emotions don't just happen randomly. They're triggered by beliefs that interpret situations in specific ways. When you feel intense shame about making a mistake, that's not really about the mistake itself. It's about a belief that mistakes make you unworthy or unacceptable. When you feel rage at someone else's good fortune, that's not about their success. It's about a belief that good things don't happen to people like you. Here's how you use this. Next time you feel a strong emotional reaction, stop and ask yourself what belief would have to be true for you to feel this way. If you feel anxious about speaking up in meetings, what belief about your voice or your ideas would create that anxiety? If you feel hopeless when you see your bank account, what belief about money or your ability to earn it would generate that hopelessness? Your triggers become treasure maps when you follow them back to their source. The situations that consistently upset you, the comments that hit you hardest, the circumstances that make you feel small or angry or scared. These are all pointing to specific beliefs that need your attention. Pattern recognition is another powerful method for identifying hidden beliefs. Pay attention to the stories you tell yourself repeatedly. Listen to your internal dialogue throughout the day. Notice what themes keep showing up in your thoughts and conversations. Do you often think about how other people have advantages you don't have? That points to beliefs about fairness and your own disadvantages. Do you frequently worry about not having enough time, money, or resources? That reveals scarcity beliefs. Do you regularly imagine scenarios where things go wrong? That exposes beliefs about your ability to handle challenges or create positive outcomes. Your language patterns reveal your beliefs with startling accuracy. Listen for phrases that start with "I always," "I never," "I can't," or "I'm not." These absolute statements aren't descriptions of reality. They're expressions of programmed beliefs. When you say, "I'm not good with technology," you're not stating a fact about your DNA. You're repeating a belief that was formed through specific experiences and reinforced through repetition. Notice how you complete sentences that start with "people like me," or "in my family, we," or "given my background." These completions reveal beliefs about identity, possibility, and limitations that you've accepted without questioning. They show you the invisible boundaries your beliefs have drawn around your life. Your biggest frustrations often point to your deepest limiting beliefs. The areas where you feel most stuck, most angry, or most hopeless are usually where your strongest limiting beliefs operate. If you're constantly frustrated with your career progress, examine your beliefs about your capabilities, your worthiness of success, or what's possible for someone with your background. If you're repeatedly frustrated in relationships, look at your beliefs about love, trust, or your own lovability. If money is a constant source of stress and frustration, investigate your beliefs about abundance, your relationship with money, or what you deserve financially. Here's what makes this detective work so important. Limiting beliefs gain their power through invisibility. They control you most effectively when you don't realize they're there. They operate like computer viruses, running programs that damage your system while hiding from your awareness. But once you can name a specific limiting belief, you've taken away half its power. When you realize that "I'm not smart enough" is a belief rather than a fact, something shifts. When you recognize that "money is hard to come by" is programming rather than reality, you create space for change. Your beliefs feel true because they've been reinforced through years of selective attention and confirmation bias. Your brain has been collecting evidence that supports these beliefs while filtering out contradictory evidence. But once you identify a belief as a belief rather than a fact, you can start looking for evidence that challenges it. Think about beliefs you used to hold that you no longer believe. Maybe you once believed you couldn't learn to drive, or use a computer, or live away from home. These beliefs felt completely true until you proved them wrong through experience. The same thing can happen with your current limiting beliefs once you identify them clearly. The process of hunting your hidden beliefs requires honest self-examination. You need to be willing to look at your patterns without judgment. You need to trace your emotional reactions back to their sources. You need to listen to your language and notice what stories you tell yourself repeatedly. Some beliefs will be obvious once you start looking. Others will be more subtle, hiding behind seemingly positive thoughts or rational concerns. The belief, "I don't want to be selfish," might actually be hiding a deeper belief that your needs don't matter. The thought, "I'm being realistic," might be covering up a belief that good things don't happen to you. This detective work isn't about judging yourself for having limiting beliefs. Everyone has them. They're a normal part of human psychology. The goal is simply to bring them into the light, where you can examine them consciously. Once you've identified your specific limiting beliefs, you can begin working with the most powerful discovery in modern neuroscience: the fact that your brain possesses an extraordinary ability to change itself that most people never learn to harness. Chapter 7. The Rewiring Revolution. This discovery unlocks what scientists call the rewiring revolution, your brain's ability to literally reconstruct itself at any age through neuroplasticity. This isn't some feel-good motivational concept. This is hard science that changes everything about how you approach personal transformation. Neuroplasticity means your brain can form new neural pathways and weaken old ones throughout your entire life. The landmark case of Henry Molaison, known as Patient HM, revealed how the brain can rewire itself even after severe damage, showing that procedural memory and new learning pathways can develop independently of existing brain structures. Think about what this really means. The same brain that installed your limiting beliefs during childhood can install empowering beliefs today. The same neural networks that automated your self-doubt can automate self-confidence instead. The mental patterns that feel permanent and unchangeable are actually just well-traveled roads in your brain that can be redirected. Here's where most people get this wrong. They try to change using methods that work against how the brain actually rewires itself. They rely on willpower alone. They expect instant results. They give up when change feels difficult. They're trying to build new neural pathways using the same old approaches that never worked before. But your brain doesn't care about your willpower. It doesn't respond to shoulds or have-tos. It responds to two specific forces that unlock neuroplastic change: repetition and emotion. These are the keys that open the door to permanent mental transformation. Repetition works because your brain is constantly looking for patterns. Every time you repeat a thought, behavior, or emotional response, you're sending a signal to your brain that this pattern matters. Your brain interprets repetition as importance. It starts building stronger neural pathways to make repeated patterns more automatic and efficient. Think about learning to drive. At first, you had to consciously think about every movement. Check mirrors, signal, accelerate, brake, steer. Your brain was building new neural pathways for each action. But through repetition, these movements became automatic. You can now drive while having conversations, listening to music, or thinking about your day. That's neuroplasticity in action. The same process works for mental patterns. Every time you choose a new thought instead of an old limiting belief, you're building a new neural pathway. Every time you respond differently to a familiar trigger, you're strengthening new brain connections. The key is consistency. Your brain needs to see the same pattern repeated many times before it accepts it as the new normal. Emotion is the second key, because your brain pays special attention to emotionally charged experiences. Think about your strongest memories. They're usually connected to intense emotions. Your brain uses emotion as a filing system. Highly emotional experiences get marked as important and get stronger neural encoding. This is why traumatic experiences can have such lasting impact. The emotional intensity tells your brain that this information is crucial for survival. The same mechanism works for positive change. When you combine new thoughts or behaviors with positive emotions, your brain fast-tracks the formation of new neural pathways. New neural pathways start as tiny trails in your brain. Picture walking through an untouched field. The first time you walk across, you barely leave a mark. The grass springs back. The path is barely visible. But if you walk the same route every day, you start creating a clear trail. Over time, that trail becomes a well-worn path. Eventually, it becomes a superhighway. Your neural pathways develop the same way. The first time you choose a new thought pattern, the neural connection is weak. It takes conscious effort. It feels awkward and unnatural. But each repetition strengthens the pathway. What started as a tiny trail becomes a neural superhighway that your brain can travel automatically. Here's something important to understand. Old pathways don't disappear when you build new ones. They just get overgrown by stronger new patterns. Your limiting beliefs don't get erased. They get overshadowed by more powerful, empowering beliefs. Your old emotional responses don't vanish. They get replaced by stronger new responses that your brain prefers to use. This is actually good news. It means you're not fighting to destroy old patterns. You're working to build stronger new patterns that naturally take precedence. It's like creating a new main road that bypasses an old, winding route. The old road still exists, but everyone uses the new superhighway because it's faster and more efficient. This explains why change feels uncomfortable. You're literally building new brain architecture. Construction is messy and disruptive. When you start forming new neural pathways, your brain has to work harder. New patterns require conscious effort and mental energy. Old patterns feel comfortable because they're already built. New patterns feel awkward because they're still under construction. Most people interpret this discomfort as evidence that change isn't working. They think the awkwardness means they're on the wrong path. But discomfort during change is actually a positive sign. It means your brain is doing the hard work of building new neural infrastructure. Think about physical exercise. When you start a new workout routine, your muscles feel sore and tired. You don't interpret this as failure. You recognize it as evidence that your muscles are adapting and getting stronger. Mental change works the same way. The mental effort and emotional discomfort mean your brain is rewiring itself. Your brain is designed to maintain existing patterns because they're efficient and familiar. Building new patterns requires extra energy and resources. But once new patterns become established, they become just as automatic as the old ones. The discomfort is temporary. The new neural superhighways become permanent. Understanding neuroplasticity gives you the blueprint for permanent mental transformation. You're not trying to fix something broken. You're not battling against your nature. You're working with your brain's natural ability to adapt and change. You're using the same mechanisms that installed your current patterns to install better patterns. This isn't about positive thinking or pretending your problems don't exist. This is about strategically using repetition and emotion to build neural pathways that serve your goals instead of limiting them. You can literally rewire your brain to think, feel, and behave in ways that create the life you want. The question isn't whether your brain can change. The question is how to accelerate this rewiring process using techniques that work with your brain's natural learning mechanisms. One of the most powerful methods leverages something your brain does automatically every single day. Chapter 8. The Visualization Advantage. Your brain can't tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. That's your secret weapon for rewiring your mental patterns. When you visualize something with enough detail and emotional intensity, your brain creates the same neural pathways as if you actually lived that experience. This isn't some mystical concept. This is measurable neuroscience that elite performers use to gain competitive advantages. Mental rehearsal through visualization creates the same neural patterns as actually performing an action. fMRI studies show that when Olympic athletes visualize their routines, their motor cortex activates in patterns nearly identical to when they physically perform those same movements, demonstrating how imagined practice strengthens neural pathways just like real practice. Their brains treat the imagined experience as real training. Here's the problem. Most people either skip visualization entirely or do it wrong, missing out on this powerful rewiring tool. They think visualization is too simple to work. They assume it's just daydreaming or wishful thinking. Others try it once or twice, don't see immediate results, and give up. They don't understand that visualization is a skill that requires practice and specific techniques to be effective. Research shows visualization can improve performance by up to 23%. Athletes don't just casually imagine success. They follow detailed mental rehearsal protocols. They visualize every movement, every sensation, every emotion involved in peak performance. They practice their mental routines with the same discipline they apply to physical training. They understand that mental rehearsal is actual training, not just preparation for training. Think about what this means for your personal change goals. If visualization can improve athletic performance by nearly a quarter, what could it do for your confidence, your career success, or your relationships? The same brain mechanisms that help athletes perfect their physical skills can help you perfect your mental and emotional responses. The neuroscience behind why imagined experiences create real neural changes is fascinating. When you visualize an experience, your brain activates the same regions that would fire during the actual experience. Your visual cortex processes the imagined sights. Your auditory cortex responds to imagined sounds. Your motor cortex prepares for imagined movements. Your emotional centers react to imagined feelings. Your brain doesn't have a separate filing system for real versus imagined experiences. It processes both through the same neural networks. This means vivid visualizations literally rewire your brain's default patterns. Every time you imagine responding confidently to a challenging situation, you're building neural pathways for confidence. Every time you visualize success, you're creating brain connections that support successful outcomes. This aligns with research by Dijksterhuis showing that unconscious thought processes can improve decision-making with novel goals, demonstrating how the mind programs itself unconsciously through repeated mental patterns. Your brain works on these visualized experiences even when you're not consciously thinking about them. But here's where most people go wrong with visualization. They make it too vague, too brief, or too disconnected from emotion. Effective visualization requires engaging all 5 senses and emotions. You can't just see yourself succeeding. You need to hear the sounds, feel the sensations, smell the environment, taste the moment, and experience the emotions that come with success. Let's say you want to become more confident in job interviews. Weak visualization would be briefly imagining yourself sitting in an interview saying, "I got the job." Strong visualization would involve seeing the interviewer's face, hearing their questions, feeling your feet on the floor, noticing the temperature of the room, smelling the office environment, tasting the confidence in your mouth, and experiencing the calm energy that comes with being fully prepared. The more sensory details you include, the more real the experience becomes to your brain. Your neurons can't tell the difference between a richly imagined interview and an actual interview. Both create similar neural patterns. Both strengthen the same mental pathways. Both prepare your brain to respond confidently in real interview situations. Here's another crucial element most people miss. You need to visualize the process, not just the outcome. Don't just imagine having the perfect job. Imagine the entire process of getting that job. See yourself researching companies, crafting applications, preparing for interviews, handling difficult questions, and following up professionally. Your brain needs to rehearse the entire sequence of actions, not just celebrate the final result. This process-focused visualization builds neural pathways for the actual behaviors you need to perform. When you face real situations, your brain recognizes familiar patterns from your mental rehearsals. You respond more smoothly because you've already practiced these responses hundreds of times in your mind. You can use visualization to rehearse new responses to old triggers. Think about situations that typically trigger your limiting beliefs or negative emotional patterns. Maybe criticism makes you defensive. Maybe new opportunities create anxiety. Maybe social situations activate your insecurities. You can mentally rehearse different responses to these triggers. Visualize the triggering situation in detail. See the person giving criticism. Hear their tone of voice. Notice your body's initial reaction. Then, imagine choosing a different response. See yourself staying calm and centered. Feel your breathing remain steady. Hear yourself asking clarifying questions instead of getting defensive. Experience the confidence that comes from responding thoughtfully instead of reacting automatically. Your brain treats this mental rehearsal as real practice. When similar situations arise in actual life, your brain has already practiced the new response pattern. The old automatic reaction feels less familiar. The new conscious response feels more natural. You've literally rewired your default patterns through mental practice. The emotional component is absolutely critical for effective visualization. Visualization without emotion is just mental movies that don't create lasting neural changes. But visualization with intense positive emotion becomes a rewiring accelerator. Your brain uses emotion to determine which experiences deserve strong neural encoding. When you visualize success, you need to feel the emotions of success. Experience the pride, the satisfaction, the relief, the excitement. Let these emotions flow through your body as you visualize. Your brain will mark this as an important experience and build stronger neural pathways to support similar emotional states in real situations. Start with just 10 minutes of daily visualization. This might seem too simple to create real change, but remember that neuroplasticity works through repetition and emotion. 10 minutes of focused, emotionally charged mental rehearsal every day can literally rewire your brain's default patterns. Professional athletes dedicate hours to mental training because they understand its power. Choose a consistent time for your visualization practice. Many people find morning visualization sets a positive tone for the entire day. Others prefer evening sessions to rehearse the next day's challenges. The timing matters less than the consistency. Your brain responds to patterns. Regular practice creates stronger neural changes than sporadic, intense sessions. Create a quiet environment where you won't be interrupted. Close your eyes and take several deep breaths to center yourself. Choose specific scenarios you want to rehearse. Make them vivid and detailed. Engage all your senses. Feel the emotions deeply. Practice for 10 focused minutes. Your brain is constantly rewiring itself based on your repeated thoughts and experiences. You can consciously direct this rewiring process through strategic visualization. The same neural mechanisms that installed your current patterns can install better patterns that serve your goals instead of limiting them. But visualization is just one tool in your mental rewiring toolkit. the words you use to talk to yourself every day, create an even more constant stream of programming instructions. Chapter 9. The Language of Change. These internal conversations operate as direct programming commands that your subconscious follows without question. Every time you say, "I'm not good at this," or "I always mess things up," or "I can't handle stress," you're installing software that makes those statements become reality. Your subconscious doesn't argue with you or evaluate whether your self-talk is accurate. It simply accepts your words as instructions and works to fulfill them. The words you repeat to yourself aren't just thoughts. They're instructions that your subconscious follows literally. Affirmations and self-talk create neural pathways that become your brain's default programming. Think about it. You've been talking to yourself your entire life. Every day, you have thousands of internal conversations. You comment on your performance, judge your appearance, predict your future, and evaluate your worth. These aren't just random thoughts floating through your mind. They're repeated messages that shape your neural networks. Your brain treats repeated self-talk like training data. When you consistently tell yourself you're unlucky, your brain starts looking for evidence to support that programming. When you regularly say you're not smart enough, your brain begins filtering out evidence of your intelligence. Research on self-talk shows this creates biased attention, interpretation, and memory. 3 types of confirmation bias, where you selectively focus on information that confirms existing beliefs, interpret neutral situations negatively, and remember events in ways that support your programmed self-concept. Your internal dialogue becomes the blueprint your subconscious uses to construct your reality. Here's the problem. Most people use affirmations that actually reinforce the very patterns they're trying to change. They try to convince themselves they're confident by repeating, "I am confident," while feeling anxious inside. They attempt to attract money by saying, "I am wealthy," while stressed about bills. The contradiction between their words and their emotional state creates internal conflict that weakens the affirmation's effectiveness. Your subconscious mind processes language differently than your conscious mind. Your conscious mind understands context, sarcasm, and complex meanings. Your subconscious mind is more literal and direct. It responds to emotional intensity and repetition more than logical reasoning. When you say, "I am confident," but feel uncertain, your subconscious pays more attention to the uncertain feeling than the confident words. This is why generic affirmations often fail, while specific, believable ones create lasting change. Telling yourself, "I am successful," when you're struggling feels like lying to yourself. Your internal resistance kicks in immediately. Your brain rejects the statement because it contradicts your current experience. Instead of creating positive change, the affirmation actually reinforces your awareness of the gap between where you are and where you want to be. But what if you adjusted your language to match your brain's natural change process? What if you used words that feel believable while still moving you toward your goals? This is where strategic self-talk becomes powerful. Instead of declaring outcomes you haven't achieved, you can describe processes you're actually experiencing. Start your affirmations with phrases like, "I am learning to," or "I am becoming." These words bypass mental resistance because they acknowledge your current growth process rather than claiming instant transformation. "I am learning to speak confidently in meetings" feels achievable. "I am becoming more financially aware" sounds realistic. "I am developing stronger boundaries" describes a believable process. Your brain accepts these statements because they don't contradict your current reality. You can be learning something new even if you haven't mastered it yet. You can be becoming someone different even if you're not there yet. These bridging phrases create space for growth while honoring where you actually are right now. Identity-based language focuses on who you're becoming rather than what you want. Instead of saying, "I want to lose weight," try, "I am becoming someone who takes care of their body." Instead of, "I need more money," use, "I am becoming financially responsible." Instead of, "I wish I was confident," say, "I am developing genuine self-assurance." This shift from wanting to becoming changes how your brain processes the information. Wanting implies lack and creates feelings of deficiency. Becoming implies progress and generates feelings of growth. Your subconscious responds more positively to becoming language because it suggests movement rather than static desire. Here's another powerful technique. Use bridging beliefs that feel believable while moving you toward your goal. If you want to believe, "I am worthy of success," but it feels untrue, start with, "I am open to discovering my worth." If "I attract abundance easily" creates internal resistance, try, "I am noticing more opportunities around me." These bridging beliefs work because they don't require you to believe something that contradicts your current experience. They simply ask you to be open to new possibilities. Your brain can accept openness and curiosity much more easily than it can accept radical claims that feel false. Pay attention to the specific words you choose. Research from cognitive behavioral therapy shows that effective reframing must be done in present tense to create lasting change. "I am growing in confidence" suggests natural development rather than creating pressure. "I am expanding my income streams" implies strategic progress rather than generating stress and urgency. Your language shapes your emotional state, and your emotional state influences your actions. When you use pressured language, you activate your stress response. When you use growth language like learning, becoming, or developing, you activate your curiosity and motivation. Start paying attention to your internal dialogue throughout the day. Notice the words you use when you make mistakes, face challenges, or encounter setbacks. Do you say, "I'm so stupid," or "I'm learning from this"? Do you think, "I never get lucky breaks," or "I'm becoming better at recognizing opportunities"? Your habitual self-talk reveals your current programming and shows you what needs to change. Replace self-criticism with self-coaching. Instead of, "I can't believe I did that again," try, "What can I learn from this experience?" Instead of, "I'm terrible at public speaking," use, "I'm developing my communication skills." Instead of, "I always mess things up," say, "I'm becoming more careful and thoughtful in my actions." This isn't about pretending problems don't exist or using fake positivity to cover up real issues. This is about choosing language that supports your growth instead of reinforcing your limitations. You can acknowledge challenges while still speaking to yourself like someone who believes in your potential for change. Create specific affirmations for the areas where you want to see change. If you struggle with confidence, develop statements like, "I am learning to trust my judgment," or "I am becoming comfortable with speaking my truth." If money is challenging, try, "I am developing a healthier relationship with finances," or "I am becoming more aware of abundance opportunities." Write your affirmations down and repeat them consistently. Your brain responds to repetition and consistency more than intensity. 5 minutes of daily affirmation practice creates stronger neural pathways than 1 hour of occasional practice. Make this part of your morning routine or evening reflection time. Strategic self-talk becomes a daily practice that gradually shifts your mental default settings. Every time you choose growth language over limitation language, you're building new neural pathways. Every time you speak to yourself with encouragement rather than criticism, you're rewiring your internal programming. Your words become your reality because your brain treats them as instructions for what to create. Choose words that support the person you're becoming rather than reinforcing the patterns you want to change. But changing your language is just the beginning. These new patterns need consistent reinforcement to become permanent. Chapter 10. The Maintenance Protocol. The maintenance protocol becomes your daily operating system for sustaining transformation. Real change isn't a destination you reach. It's a new way of traveling that requires ongoing navigation. Think about it like learning to drive. You don't just pass your driving test and then never think about driving skills again. You continue developing your abilities. You adapt to new roads. You handle different weather conditions. You stay alert to changing traffic patterns. Most people achieve initial breakthrough, but then slide back because they don't have a maintenance system. They experience those exciting moments when old patterns break and new possibilities open up. They feel different. They act different. They believe they've finally cracked the code. Then life gets busy. Stress increases. Old situations trigger familiar responses. Before they know it, they're back where they started, wondering what happened to their progress. Here's the thing. Your old programming never fully disappears. It just becomes dormant, waiting for stress or fatigue to reactivate it. Research from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology reveals that ignoring unconscious patterns creates long-term psychological costs, demonstrating why ongoing maintenance practices are essential for sustained change. Those neural pathways you spent years building don't just vanish overnight. They're still there like old roads covered by new construction. When your mental energy gets low or life gets overwhelming, your brain defaults to the most established pathways, the ones with the strongest connections, the ones that feel most familiar. This isn't failure. This is a normal brain function. Your brain is designed to conserve energy by using established patterns. When you're tired, stressed, or overwhelmed, your brain naturally reaches for the most automatic responses available. If those responses happen to be old limiting patterns, that's what shows up. You need to create daily practices that strengthen new neural pathways before old ones can resurface. Think about physical fitness. You don't work out once and stay fit forever. You maintain your fitness through consistent daily movement. Mental fitness works the same way. You maintain your new mental patterns through consistent daily practices. Start with mental hygiene routines. You brush your teeth every day because you understand the importance of dental hygiene. You need the same approach with your thoughts. Choose your thoughts consciously, like you choose what to eat. Pay attention to your internal dialogue throughout the day. Notice when old limiting thoughts try to resurface. Replace them with the new patterns you've been building. Set specific times for mental maintenance. Many people find morning routines particularly powerful because they set the tone for the entire day. Spend 5 minutes reviewing your new beliefs. Visualize yourself responding to challenges from your new mental programming. Feel the emotions that come with your transformed identity. Evening reflection creates another opportunity for maintenance. Review your day. Notice where old patterns showed up. Celebrate where new patterns took hold. Plan how you'll handle similar situations tomorrow. This isn't about judging yourself harshly. This is about staying aware of your mental patterns and making conscious adjustments. Build environmental cues that support your new mental patterns. Your environment constantly sends signals to your subconscious about who you are and what's possible. If you want to maintain confidence, surround yourself with reminders of your capabilities. If you're building abundance thinking, remove visual cues that reinforce scarcity beliefs. Change your physical space to match your mental transformation. Put up photos that remind you of your goals. Use phone wallpapers that reinforce your new identity. Place books about growth where you'll see them regularly. These visual cues work as constant, gentle reminders that strengthen your new neural pathways throughout the day. Your social environment matters just as much as your physical environment. Spend time with people who see you as the person you're becoming, not the person you used to be. Limit time with people who constantly remind you of old patterns or try to pull you back to familiar limitations. This isn't about cutting people out of your life. This is about being strategic about where you invest your mental energy. Learn to use setbacks as information rather than evidence that change isn't working. When old patterns resurface, don't interpret this as proof that transformation is impossible. View it as valuable data about what triggers your old programming. Every setback teaches you something about your mental patterns and shows you where you need stronger maintenance practices. Think about setbacks like a scientist would. What circumstances led to the old pattern showing up? Were you tired, stressed, around certain people, in specific environments? This information helps you prepare better strategies for similar situations in the future. You're not failing when old patterns appear. You're learning how to navigate your transformation more effectively. Track your progress over time rather than judging day-to-day fluctuations. Some days will feel like huge steps forward. Other days will feel like steps backward. The overall trend matters more than individual moments. Keep a simple journal of your mental patterns. Notice how your responses to similar situations change over weeks and months. Small daily practices create massive long-term transformation through what researchers call the compound effect. Dijksterhuis's research on unconscious thought demonstrates how consistent, small mental efforts can yield disproportionately large results over time, much like compound interest in finance. You don't need to spend hours each day on mental maintenance. 5 minutes of morning visualization, brief moments of conscious thought choosing throughout the day, and 5 minutes of evening reflection can create profound changes over time. Your daily maintenance practices might seem insignificant in the moment. Choosing one empowering thought instead of a limiting one doesn't feel revolutionary. But making that choice hundreds of times over months builds neural superhighways that completely change your default mental patterns. Create simple systems that make maintenance easier. Use phone reminders for mental check-ins. Set up visual cues that prompt positive self-talk. Develop short phrases you can use when old patterns try to resurface. Make your maintenance practices so simple and automatic that you'll do them even when motivation is low. Remember that maintenance becomes easier over time. New patterns that feel awkward and require conscious effort eventually become just as automatic as old patterns once were. The goal isn't to think consciously about every thought forever. The goal is to install new automatic patterns that serve your growth instead of limiting it. Mental mastery becomes a lifestyle of conscious choice rather than unconscious reaction. You develop the ability to pause between stimulus and response. You notice when old patterns try to activate. You choose different responses based on who you're becoming rather than who you used to be. This conscious choice becomes your new normal. You stop being surprised by challenges because you have systems for handling them. You stop being derailed by setbacks because you understand they're part of the growth process. You develop confidence in your ability to navigate whatever life presents because you've built reliable mental patterns that support your goals. This transformation gives you something most people never experience: genuine control over the most powerful force in your life. Conclusion: your mental transformation represents more than personal growth. It's a fundamental shift in how you experience reality itself. You now hold the keys to the most sophisticated computer ever created: your own mind. Every technique you've learned, every insight you've gained, every pattern you've identified gives you power over the mental programs that once controlled you automatically. The choice is yours. Remain a passenger in your own mental vehicle, letting old programming drive you toward the same destinations you've always reached. Or take the wheel and drive toward the life you actually want. Research in cognitive behavioral therapy confirms that sustained subconscious reprogramming creates lasting behavior change, validating the power of these mental transformation techniques. Your journey to mental mastery starts with the next thought you choose to think. That choice changes everything. Take a moment to reflect on one limiting belief you identified while reading this. Consider sharing it in the comments below as your first step toward conscious change.